No soap radio. It's a prank that consists of making a punchline at the end of the joke that has no relation to the body of the joke, while the comedian pretends that it does by laughing, and if the other person starts laughing along, the comedian asks him to explain the joke, making him feel embarrassed. Anti-humor. It's a type of alternative humor that causes laughter because of the surprise generated by the lack of a punchline or joke at the end. A famous example of this is the Shaggy Dog story, which consists of telling an extremely long story without delivering a punchline at the end, which leaves the audience confused at first. Sarcasm. It's characterized by saying something but meaning the opposite in a witty way, and it's usually used to express disdain, mockery, or criticism. It's understood through the tone of voice and the context in which it's used, as focusing only on the actual words may not be sufficient to understand the underlying irony. Sarcasm is mostly used in informal conversations. Slapstick. Also called physical comedy, it's usually full of physical violence, both real and simulated, with the intent of creating laughter in the audience. This type of humor involves the creation of embarrassing, painful, or humiliating situations for those involved, and it's one of the only types of humor that can be enjoyed solely through vision, given its physical nature. White humor. It's the most innocent type of humor, as it's free of offensive content, and it doesn't require mockery of someone or any form of humor that may hurt other people's feelings. It's mostly targeted towards kids and teenagers, as there are neither insults nor bad intentions. Dry humor. It's a type of inexpressive humor which consists of saying something funny without using body language and delivering the jokes in a straightforward style with a serious intonation. Its best characteristics are the brevity, precision, and wit of the observations, which contrast the lack of emotion of the comedian. Black humor. Black humor is characterized by the addressing of inappropriate or sensitive topics, such as death, disability, or violence, with the goal of producing laughter through emotional shock. This type of humor requires great sensitivity from the comedian and knowledge about the context of where and when the joke is said, as it's really easy to cross the line into straight-up insults. A big advantage of black humor is that it can lighten up difficult topics and reduce the pain they cause. Satire. It's the use of humor and exaggeration to criticize and expose a situation, and it's usually used in contemporary politics to explain social injustices through irony. Satire can come from actual disapproval from the comedian, or it can be simply used as a way to have fun. Surreal. It's characterized by its lack of logic and coherence, and it can be one of the hardest types of humor to use, as the comedian needs to find a balance between total nonsense and surreal humor. Green humor. It's sexual humor, both implicit and explicit, that has a vulgar nature and bad taste, which creates laughter from embarrassment. Of course, the most explicit jokes are targeted towards an adult audience, and it's one of the most universal types of humor, as it can be understood by every social class. Grotesque humor. This one is a visual type of humor, and it's mainly used by cartoons, which can more easily distort and exaggerate characters' features to make them ugly and horrifying. This type of humor invokes many emotions at once, making the audience feel both disgusted and entertained at the same time. Reaffirming and autodestructive. These two are both types of self-irony, but they have different meanings. Reaffirming humor arises from the need to laugh at oneself in a healthy way, especially in adverse situations, to lighten up the mood. Autodestructive humor, on the other hand, is self-deprecation or used as a punishment for oneself, and it can be a sign of low self-esteem. Observational. It's based on common aspects of everyday life, and it's one of the most used types of humor in stand-up comedy. The comedian makes an observation about something that is common enough to be familiar to their audience, but not commonly discussed, usually using phrases such as, "Have you ever noticed that?" Insult comedy. Insult comedy consists mainly of offensive insults, usually directed at other performers or at the audience, especially toward hecklers. It can be both improvised and structured, with comedians holding what are called roasting sessions.